All right, you guys, welcome. Welcome to Pure Dog Talks live at 5. I am your host, Laura Reeves. And tonight I'm pretty excited. We're tackling kind of a newfangled topic, right? The other AI. No, not artificial insemination. We're doing artificial intelligence tonight. Yep. Obviously, this is a thing out there in greater society. And as with most other things in society, it eventually impacts us here in the dog world. From AI generated art to the new fad of folks having Chat GPT evaluate their dogs. Asks me how crazy that makes me. Okay, cool. We have a couple cool special guests, Beth and Brian, who both have a super deep background in tech, and they're going to explain why some of those things that people are doing are all terrible ideas. And then hopefully, Marty Greer's going to make it, and she's going to drop by to talk about how she's using AI for good, right? Use your power for good, right? And using it to take notes in her exam room. So I'm pretty excited. Hopefully, Marty will make it. You never know about her life. So while everybody's hopping on, we have a couple items for the good of the order. First of all, if you guys have not twigged to the Marty and Laura show, please do. Like it, share it with your friends, your family, your brothers, uncles, cousins, girlfriend, your puppy buyers. It is fantastic information that is absolutely targeted to the pet owning public and pushing hard to get it out there. Good information to pet owners from a reliable source. So, second of all, always remember Auntie Laura's Beginner's Guide to Show Dogs. It's available on the book tab at the website. We don't always talk about it. We also have a brand new audiobook that's available on the Marty and Laura Show website. It is a frequently asked questions, just basic, handy to have around, itchy skin, bad potty, all the things that everybody always asks. So, two great audiobooks to check out. And then our archives. I tell you what, there's almost 700 episodes. And I did all the searching and the hunting and pecking for you. And we have produced albums on everything from breeding and whelping hands on to the interviews with legends, veterinary voices, owner handlers, love the breed. So, all the different breed interviews, just a ton of information. Y'all missed the introductory pricing, but they're still pretty cheap for the amount of information you get. Hours and hours and hours of listening pleasure in each album. If you have a topic you want to see featured here on Live at 5, shoot me an email, laura@puredogtalk.com, and I'll put something together for you. As always, you guys, your success is our success. Okay? If you haven't yet, check out our patrons group. You can sign up on the website. Natalie's going to drop you a link. It's as little as $10 a month. That's like a cup of coffee. Okay. So check it out. Patrons tab at puredogtalk.com. Because you know why, you guys? Your passion, that's our purpose. So, with that and no further ado, Beth, Brian, are you there?
We are
Yay!
here. How are you?
Excellent. That is amazing. I'm great. How are you guys?
We're pretty good.
Oh, really well.
Awesome. Awesome. Beth is a candid photographer here in the Northwest. I had her on the podcast a number of years ago talking about, I don't even remember, utilizing social media. She has an amazing Instagram account for her Whippet called Kuiper the Space Whippet. It is amazing. So if you haven't checked those out, skinny dog photography. But the reason they're here tonight is because these two guys are super deep in Techlandia, the world of the Elons and the crazy people. So, sorry, didn't mean that to be.
No, that's all right.
I am taking the role tonight of the original Luddite cave dwelling, hit things over the head with a hammer. I don't get AI. I don't have it on my phone. I don't get it. So I wanted someone who got it to come and talk to us about AI. And I mentioned some of the things that I just personally casually scrolling through social media have seen people saying that they're doing. My artist friends who are complaining that even, clubs are not paying for artwork from artists, they're just using AI, which to me is just so offensive. And then the one that finally sent me like diving over the cliff to have this to have this live tonight, which is the one where people are having Chat GPT evaluate their dogs.
Oh no.
Picture. In through the nose, out through the mouth. So, give us the teach me about it like I'm 5 understanding of what we call AI, artificial intelligence. And go.
All right. So my name is Beth, and I run Skinny Dog Photography, and this is my partner Brian. We met while we were working at Intel. At the time, we were both working for Intel, so we're very kind of nerdy, and we're going to try and make this
We love
digestible
nerds
one.
here. We love nerds. This is a nerd-friendly space.
Oh, excellent. I'm happy to hear that. We're going to try and make this digestible and also as accurate as we can, so that the one person that also works in tech that is watching doesn't send me an email like, well, actually, transformer models, blah,
Well,
blah, blah.
actually,
We're
maybe
going to try and boil this down and
they'll
kind of make it
mansplain it to
digestible
you,
for
Beth.
everyone. So when we talk about artificial intelligence, it's actually like an entire class of technology. Most of the time, people are using it to refer to like ChatGPT or AI art generation. You can kind of think of it as, on a high level, ChatGPT, when you start typing on your phone starts suggesting words that go in the sentence next. It's kind of like that, but with a bunch of steroids pumped into it. At the end of the day, it's really, really, really fancy predictive text.
Autocorrect on steroids seems like, how many times have I not typed duck is all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly. So what we have done, basically, well, not we, because we haven't done this ourselves. They've taken all of the text and all of the images that they can possibly find on the internet, and they've distilled them down as much as possible. So you can kind of think of, take a whole library and then shove that into a bunch of cliff notes. You're going to lose a lot of nuance with cliff notes. There's going to be a lot of, like, you're basically just going to get a really, really high level of understanding by looking at the cliff notes. What else do you have anything to add to that?
I think that's a lot of how the generative AI works, like ChatGPT, but like there's a lot of those other technologies that are underpinning everything on the internet that we'll not dig into, but like deciding what podcasts are recommended to you are using this sort of technology as well.
Right. All your
deciding
algorithms.
what Facebook posts you see.
Yes.
Okay.
And then I'd say the other thing is when like ChatGPT is deciding the next words to show, oftentimes it's sort of taking the most average response.
Right, because it's taking all of the information off the internet. So if 1,000 people said one thing and that's kind of the average consensus, but it may not be accurate or up to date. If you think you can ask an average person about the structure of your dog that isn't even in dog shows or doesn't know anything about the standard, like, they're going to tell you, hey, your dog looks great, because like they want to have a pleasant interaction with you. And they're also kind of coded to be kind of obsequious. Like, they want to be like, hey, that's good job. Like, they want people to feel good when they're using this tool. And that can kind of be to the detriment of the tool.
Yeah, there's a real confirmation bias. I think in the last couple of months, there was even reporting that came out that they'd done something to make it too sycophantic, and they had to roll that back. Where it was praising people for saying they were getting off their meds despite it not being the recommendation of medical professionals. It was suggesting that, I think, poo on a stick was a really excellent business idea. Like, it was just saying yes to everything. And you wouldn't want that sort of response if you're asking it to evaluate the structure of your dog, because it's just going to say that's the best structure any dog's ever had, regardless of the truth.
Right. And I think another thing that's really important to highlight is that we call it artificial intelligence, which sounds like a very fancy marketing term. It's not actually intelligent. It's not conscious. It doesn't know anything. It doesn't have feelings. Like, it doesn't really have common sense. And that's why
not really your friend. Is that what you're telling me? Like, what's the one I've seen about people or just having their only friends are something created on ChatGPT? Is that like real?
I will be your friend. If your only friend is a ChatGPT, like, send me a message. I will be your friend.
Join Pure Dog Talk patrons. You will have friends. You do not need ChatGPT to have friends. Oh, wow.
I think another challenge with it being sort of the average response. I did a test right before coming on over the last couple of days of asking ChatGPT and Google's Gemini as well to make a bunch of images of pugs. And
Uh-huh.
without fail, they were always fawn pugs because that's what more often than not what's seen. But we know that's not the only type of pug that's acceptable. Like just no black
Right.
pugs would
We're
ever show
very
up because
pro
that's not
black
the
pug.
average,
Yeah.
or it's not the expectation as much.
It,
And
Right.
so there's
right,
some
right,
challenges where
right.
it goes with what's popular and not necessarily
Right.
giving you the
We
full breadth.
also gave it a picture of our friend's Portuguese Pedengo, and it told us it was a very fine example of a petite Basset Griffon. So
Right. And so if it doesn't get the breed right, it's hard to know if it's going to get the
right,
structure right. So
right.
it's there's some challenges there.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. Okay. So what are some ways that we can use this technology? Because not everybody is like me, a cave dwelling Luddite. What are
Mhm.
some positive ways that we can use this technology in our dog life? What are some
So
of those types of
your
ideas?
vet may have you sign a little waiver, and then it has a little machine that kind of summarizes your vet visit. Summarizing
Mhm.
large pieces of information is something that it's good at. Obviously, you need to double check and make sure it's not like making things up or that it's inaccurate. But summarizing your vet visit, text to speech, translation between languages. It's also really good at noticing really big patterns in data. So if we feed like a bunch of data into it, we might potentially get some information about like, oh, like people that did this have like an increased cancer risk, or like analyzing health data and like finding patterns to help people.
Mhm.
I think that's all those are fantastic uses of AI, and none of them involve stealing data from me or
Right.
so I'm happy with
Right.
that.
So I think that's another kind of ethical conversation, right? You are a photographer, you are therefore an artist.
Mhm.
Every image that you post on Facebook or any place on your website, right? Like they're going all the places
Yeah.
and getting this information. Am I understanding this
Yeah. Yes,
correctly?
and I've confirmed that my photos are in the data set that they've used to train pretty much every model. So if you've generated photos on Facebook or with Midjourney or Stable Diffusion, like my photos were part of that, and I didn't consent to that. So there's people basically making money off of downloading like as many images as they can find. So if you ask ChatGPT to make you a picture of a whippet, like my photos of my whippet probably went into that,
Mhm.
and no one asked me if that was okay or paid me for it, and I think that's kind of gross. So I think on a high level, it's a
Very
cool
gross.
technology. It's fun to play with. My main objection is that people are making money off of it without my consent. And
Mhm.
like
Yeah.
I personally, I'm always happy to give photos to clubs. I don't even
Right.
care if it's your event. Like I'll find a photo to send to you. If that means that it will prevent your club from using generative AI and that you value photographers, like I'll just give you those for free. Like I want clubs to be using real photos. So
Well, and real art. Like I
yeah,
personally, when we created the Marty and Laura show, I was looking for new art, whatever. And I went to someone who's a Pure Dog Talk listener who I happen to know is an artist. And I said, make me some art, make me this, whatever. And she did a fantastic job. And it was not like obscenely
yeah,
expensive. And like, it's not hard to find fantastic real life art,
yeah,
right? Like, that's not a hard thing to do, or even necessarily an expensive thing to do. So that's one
right.
I feel really strongly about. I think it's really interesting that you only got fawn pugs, right? So if you ask for a wire hair pointer, you're not going to get a solid liver one, right? You're probably not even going to get a
Probably
white
not.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're probably not gonna get a solid colored whippet. Most of the show
right,
whippets that I see
right,
are white and
right,
party brindle. So,
right.
but color is immaterial in our breed. So you'd think we
Yes.
should theoretically get a whole slew of different colors. So
So there's a whole conversation here about dog shows turning into like we're all making carbon copies of the same dog that isn't necessarily a good one because we all used AI. But that's a whole other conversation.
oh, for
That's
sure, absolutely.
but that's really really interesting. Talk to me about. I wish Marty was here because she was telling me that she does this. The interesting thing that you said a minute ago about the data sets and crunching numbers, and I know
Yeah.
that there's been some information that they're using it in medical system for people. Do we have any idea about, you know, like can we take all the studies about bloat and figure out what's causing it using AI?
I don't think that's as likely. You may be able to find some correlations that maybe have been overlooked in meta-analyses, but it's not going to do new science or uncover
Right.
a whole lot of new things. Where
Okay.
it's more useful is when you've got an existing data to sort of go through. Like a lot of, I think, vet visits, at least we've seen, where it does a recording the whole time, and then there's sort of AI models behind the scenes that transcribe the things from the vet and then build the notes at the end. And so it makes it a little bit easier for the vet to be able to say, here's what we have from your visit. They'll be able to check at the end of it to say, yep, this is what we saw. And so it speeds up what they do there. I've also seen in work that it's really pretty effective, similarly at building meeting minutes. For there's a meeting where a bunch of people are talking and like Teams or whatever is just, or Zoom is recording as it goes. And at the end it says, hey, here's what was talked about. Here's the action items people have. This is what it's really good at. If you give it like a large text to go through and say, hey, like here's the working group breed standards or the working group standard. Tell me what's disqualifying for this breed. Then these things can go in and find that and tell you that. But if you're not uploading the document and you just ask ChatGPT naively what's disqualifying for this breed, it may not get it right. And so it needs that extra context to know what you are looking into to get that.
Right. And it may not be up to date either. They just changed the lure coursing rules in AKC where monorchid and cryptorchid dogs can now lure course. If you ask ChatGPT, are cryptorchid dogs allowed to lure course, it'll tell you no. But that rule changed as of, I think, June 1st. So
well, and there's so many things like Basenjis are a table breed, except for in October when they'll be allowed to be examined on the ramp, which you only know if you're a judge and looked at the and did the Basenji test to get your license for Basenjis. And the table ramp breed says, as of October, ramp optional. I'm like, what? So, useful bits, not so useful bits. There's so many just deep dives that we can do into this topic. I'm trying to stay focused.
There's also the environmental impact, which is pretty bad.
Yay!
Yay!
Hey,
Hello.
Marty. This is Beth and Brian. They were just talking about they have actually experienced the situation where the clinic was using the AI to do notes on their dog's vet visit. So,
we think it's cool. And if it saves the vet time, that's awesome. So
right. Your audio, Marty.
Well, can you hear me now?
Yep, got you.
Yeah. There's a number of companies that are using AI, and different ones have different capabilities. For many years, my husband tried Talkatoo and Dragon, and they just transcribed every word that you said. But the AI now takes it and organizes it into what's called a SOAP, which is 4 parts of the record: subjective, objective, analysis, and plan. SOAP. So that you actually, and I've never once in my life been able to do a SOAP record for a patient, because in the exam room, clients don't talk in subjective, objective, analysis, and plan, and doctors don't, but AI does. And so it's like really cool to be able to just have a random conversation. And like I said, I don't know who they're using. We are using Covet, and I've looked at a number of them, and this is the only one I would even consider touching and allowing us to do the paperless stuff that we wanted to do. But it is life-changing, because now I can finish up my records within 30 seconds. They're very complete, and it does really cool stuff. It doesn't transcribe your record from the conversation. It takes it and sort of finalizes it. And so it says lighthearted conversation about vacation. And so it skips the 10 minutes you talked about the national park with the client, and it just fills it down into the part of the medical record that you need, which is subjective, objective, analysis, and SOAP. So analysis would be like, this is my differential diagnosis. Objective is, these are my physical exam findings. Subjective are the things the client tells you. And plan is, so we're going to send you home with metronidazole, we're going to do a fecal, and we're going to put you on a probiotic and a different diet. So it's like, whoa. And then it even makes suggestions. It says things like, the patient is drinking too much. Did you think about this? And then it says things like, when I would say, your pet's a little plump, it says, very nice things like a reduction in caloric intake may be indicated. I'm like, that's so nice. I said, your dog is fat.
Okay, so here's a question. Marty, Brian and Beth were just talking about how so much of what goes into teaching, right? The computers maybe isn't as well educated as it might be. Have you found that their recommendations from the AI are off base, or are they sourcing from only veterinary manual? Do you guys know how that works?
I've only seen veterinary recommendations. For instance, today I had a dog in that had a pericardial sac, part of the pericardial sac removed, and it used the correct term for pericardectomy, which I never said in the exam room. The client never said in the exam room. This was a working police dog that had somehow had fluid accumulate around his heart, in the sac around his heart, and they had to go in and cut a window in the sac of the heart. No, I don't even know any dogs that are alive that's had that happen to them. So the
Wow.
computer knew to take that description, to take the term. The client used the word pericardium, but didn't use the term for the rest of it. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is unbelievable how smart this is. So I don't know how much of this comes from Covet, which is run by a veterinarian in Canada, that has written the software, and his IT guy. So I don't know how much of it comes from him and how much of it comes from pulling out of the internet the information, but it is not layman's terms, and it is really smart. It truly
That
is
is
smart.
fascinating because from what Brian and Beth were
I think that's
just saying,
expected. I think that's expected for that product because that's a very narrow scope. So that thing has
Yeah.
been trained on veterinary terms and trained on basically transcribing. So you think of
Yeah.
that as
right.
a very, very specific tool versus ChatGPT, which is a very general tool and takes out information from all over the internet. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah.
that's what
If
I
you
was
ask
trying
the
to
vet
get to.
tool
I'm like,
if you ask Kovacs or the vet tool to plan you a trip to Tuscany, it would probably do a very poor job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't. My baby.
But yeah,
but I think that,
transcribing notes is one of the things that it's really good at. So
yeah.
And then you can take if all of that data that it probably has on vet visits and vet data and animal health too, to sort of fine tune is the technical term, to make the model much smarter on that one topic at the cost of not being as smart on other ones.
yeah.
Right.
See, that's
But
really interesting. I didn't realize, see, the cave dwelling Luddite, I didn't realize there was different kinds of this. Like different like, if there's one for veterinarians, we assume there's one for people doctors. And does anybody know if there's this type of thing for I mean, can we make a purebred dog one? Like, I mean, what are the options on this?
We probably
I don't
could.
know enough.
I
I'm
think it
asking
depends
the
on what your
tech guys.
goal
They
is.
know these things. Huh?
I think it depends on what your goal is. So like what
Right.
we're using in the vet office is like a very specific tool, and the goal is to summarize a vet appointment, and that is its only sort of prime directive. So when you take a very specialized tool versus like a hammer, then you're going to get better results.
So what if we did a special purebred dog um judge's education for the working group or the hound group or the toy group, and fed it all of the judge's education materials and books and all of that? Is that like
I
a
guess I would
thing,
ask
or
what
is
your
that
goal is.
too
What
esoteric?
is your end goal? So the goal of the transcription software is to save the vet time, right? So what is the problem
Mhm.
that you're trying to solve with AI? And I think that's kind of a problem that we are seeing in society is like AI is very trendy sounding, and it's really, really good for
Right.
specific tasks like that vet visit. But if we just shove AI in just to say, oh, it's futuristic and it has AI, like we're not actually improving anything, I guess. So
Interesting. No, it was more the idea of, to give you an example. Okay, so here's my problem I'm solving. You guys help
mhm.
me figure out how to do this. My problem that I'm solving as a judge, I need to acquire an obscene amount of information about every breed that I am licensed to judge. I have to
Mhm.
get 10 CEUs, and I have to do this and I have to do that. And it's a lot more than just, sitting at the ringside and watching and going to a judge's ed. So I could envision a way. So Marty, you have a brand new breed. to the regular working group, the Danish Swedish farm dog. What if you had a tool that somebody could plug into their computer and it would assimilate all of the information that's available about the Danish Swedish farm dog in half an hour or an hour or whatever?
The question would be, what were the sources that it came from? So did it come
Right.
from
Exactly.
the farm dog
Right.
site that had the judging information on it, or did it come from some yahoo in that just thinks they're an expert, so they wrote a bunch of stuff that doesn't have any credibility? So how does AI sort out what's right and what's wrong?
Exactly.
They always tell you to review it, but for instance, I did a course a couple of years ago about AI for attorneys, and the comment that really, it was of course an hour long because attorneys never say anything less than an hour, that if you didn't use AI, that you might be considered to be negligent because you weren't using all the tools that were available to you, but you had to be smart enough to know which of those topics were accurate and which of the answers were not accurate. So, we've said this for years, is Dr. Google's not very accurate because Dr. Google can, I
Right.
could sit down garbage about a farm dog, and who would be the wiser?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the problem that I see. You guys, tech team, do you see any way for us as dog people to sort some of this out? Is there a way to know which sources, or should we just say no to AI unless we're in the vet clinic? Like how do we decide, right? How do you find a
I guess
responsible breeder?
I
How do you
wouldn't.
find responsible AI?
I basically wouldn't assume that an answer from AI is more accurate than you would get from traditional sources. I would almost assume that it would make things up. I'm sure if you ask it how good whippets are at obedience, it'll tell you that whippets can't even sit. And I will show you my high-end trial ribbon as a counter to that.
Right.
But I think especially right now, we're kind of just, it's almost like a tool that we're looking for uses for. Like we'll find some awesome uses for it, like transcribing the vet appointments. But saying, oh, it'll be better with AI is not necessarily like a good assumption if we're not setting that up correctly. So
cool. Okay. So finding a responsible AI is not as easy as it might sound.
Well,
Right.
they is learning all the time. What's it learning from? Where is it learning? Where is it gathering its from? So how harder just because it's assimilating more information. For instance, when I text the word progesterone on my cell phone, at first it tries to spell check it into some other word, and eventually your phone goes, oh, she means progesterone, so it types progesterone. But how do they know what's smarter and what's dumber, because AI doesn't necessarily know how to discern that?
Right. All right. Any other input from my tech team here?
I just want to say a note about like the environmental impact of having to build more data centers. It takes a lot more energy and a lot more water to fuel a data center for an AI query versus a traditional Google search. So that is something to be aware of as well, is this is consuming a lot of resources, which is not ideal.
Yeah.
Can you a little bit that, because there are places that AI, these servers are kept, they're kept in these underground secret places, and it's not just electricity, it's a lot of resources. Can you just describe a little bit more about what resources you mean?
So when you have a bunch of computers together, they put off a lot of heat. So the main challenge of having a data center is not just powering those computers, it's cooling those computers, because after a certain temperature, they're just going to shut down. They can't function if they're too warm. So you need a lot of water to be able to cool the computers, or at least to run your air conditioning system. You need a lot of power to run big fans typically. And then the computers, these devices themselves are also sucking up a lot of power. So if you think of a gaming computer and how much power that sucks up, you're looking at a computer with like a ton of graphics cards in it. So
yeah.
Do you have anything you want to add? Or
then there has to be more cable run to support, because now we don't have enough.
Yeah, these AI data centers use miles of cables and gigawatts of power, and it's it's impressive, but it's gigantic. And I think even the folks at OpenAI were talking about like saying please and thank you in your queries actually cost them an appreciable amount of power to get done. And like it's kind of wild that we're in a world where they're asking us not to be polite to the chatbot because it's costing them money.
Oh my God. Okay, that's some creepy. There's so much. I mean, to me, there's so much around the ethics of it. All the way to it's going to blow up the world to whatever. But
it's not going to blow up the world anytime soon. It's not that smart.
Yes, excellent.
A little town, and there's a company in the town that I live in. I mean, it is a town of under 2,000 people, and there is a corporation there called, well, I'm not going to say the name of it, that does underground cable, and it is a $30 billion company in a town of 2,000 people. So you think about the economic impact of that, it's enormous. Like, I mean, it's pretty impressive that this little tiny company that started 50 years ago has this kind of resources. But I think it's really interesting because how much is cable, and when do we start having things that are all underground instead of overhead, and what does that mean, and what does it cost to lay cable? Not the financial cost, but what does it cost in gas to get the people where they be, and what does it cost in resources to dig the lines for cable? I mean, there's just so much.
And it's huge, and they're going to continue to lay more and more of that as they build these bigger data centers to get them to be connected between each other to communicate fast. And so it's going to keep going on.
Yeah, amazing. Well, and it has some impact on our dogs and in our dog community. So that was the conversation I wanted to have. Anybody out there in listener land have questions for either our veterinary smart person or our tech smart people? Anybody?
Sorry,
No.
I just have crises to take care of today.
It's okay, honey. You're also sunburned like heck. I have to
know
tell
I
you.
was dog shows where it was 90 degrees in Illinois this weekend and 100 degrees weekend in Minnesota. So yeah, it's been great.
Yeah. The Scottish tan right there, babe.
Yes, because you go from this to peeling and then you're back to pink again.
Yeah. All right. Looks
Our
like
only
we are
question
good.
was about environmental impact, which you covered.
Okay.
I
Cool.
think a common excuse I hear, especially from clubs, is that AI art avoids appearances of favoritism and showing members or certain board members' dogs. And I'm like, absolutely not. Just show everyone's dogs then.
That's what we do as a photography company is we photograph owner handlers, we photograph full entries of all breeds. So our goal is always to treat everyone equally. So, I mean, if you're a club, I think it's showing less favoritism to show an actual photo of a dog. Otherwise, you're basically just saying we don't care about, like, to me, I feel like you don't care about photographers if you're posting AI art. So,
but there's also really talented artists like drawing and
get
painting.
someone to make a drawing or a logo. It's probably cheaper than you think. Some artists will work on a sliding scale, especially for a nonprofit like a dog club. Like, we want you to have these resources. We would rather contribute our time and effort rather than you having to use AI art. So,
and if anybody is looking for any kind of artwork, just reach out to us at Pure Dog Talk. I know a ton of people, really gifted graphic artists, designers, all the stuff, photographers. Like, I mean, there's lots of resources. So let's
support your local community by supporting your local artists.
Yes. In the idea of buy local, buy in the dog show. Hire in the dog show. Don't. Yeah. Okay. And I appreciate everybody's time. This is a fascinating topic. It was so, what you were talking about, only the fawn pugs. You missed that, Marty. They asked Chat GPT to show them a pug and they only ever saw fawn pugs. So the people that I see thinking I know, right? Thinking it's funny to, have Chat GPT evaluate their dog. I mean, it's a fun parlor game, but I'm really hoping people aren't taking this seriously because
Right. The question that the AI is answering is not what is the structure of your dog. It's like, oh, what is a plausibly sounding nice thing to say to you about your dog, basically, like based on predictive text. So it's not actually evaluating anything.
No, and I'm pretty sure that they haven't yet figured out how to download mine or anybody else's brain of 40 years
No,
of knowledge.
we're not anywhere. We may never get there. So
good.
But think
Good,
about
that's great.
Have you seen good photos of black pugs? Those are really hard to get. So
they are
pugs
not hard
might
to
be
get.
much easier.
I won't go on a whole hour rant. It is not hard to get if you know what you're doing. It is the easiest thing in the world. You
She's a
move the dial
photographer.
one click and you have a perfectly exposed black dog. If you're not shooting an automatic, this should not be a problem. So,
but if
anyway, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox.
If it's looking at hundreds of photographs of pugs on artificial intelligence online, and it sees a bunch of stuff that's really hard to see, it's going to pick the stuff that it can see. So
we covered the Pug National last year, and we have so many pictures of black pugs.
Yeah. I think even beyond whether or not the black pugs are easier to get photos of, there are more pictures of fawn pugs, and so it's going to trend in that direction.
That's the problem. It's not that all the black photos are bad. It's just that there's not as many of them.
And so the average pug is fawn.
Yeah, the average pug is fawn. The average whippet is party brindle. You know,
and the average wire-haired isn't liver.
It doesn't have access to your good photos because you've got them hidden, which you should.
Well, I don't know that they're hidden, but they're probably harder to scrape with the way my website works. So,
yeah. All right. Well, you guys, thank you so much for helping us just kind of break down one of those newfangled kind of things.
Oh, anytime. Thanks for having us on.
From the cave dwelling Luddite. We appreciate you. So don't go away, y'all. Audience, thank you so much for coming. And if you have a topic for us, just drop me a line. All right. Thanks, everybody. Good night.